Let's discuss context processors in Django. We'll take a closer look at what context processors are, how they work, and how to use them in your own Django project. So we are going to have an example on how you can use them in your Django project. What are context processors? So a context processor is a function that takes the current HTTP request object as an argument and returns a dictionary of variables that can be made available to all templates. These variables are added to the context of the request, meaning that they can be accessed in any template that is rendered as a result of that request. This allows you to include common information such as a site logo or a user details on every page of your website without having to include the same code in multiple views. Let's now understand how do context processors work. This is how they work. When a request is made to the Django application, the framework goes through a series of middleware and a view function to process the request and generate a response. Once the view function has returned a template response object, Django begins to render the template that is associated with the view. As the template is rendered, Django looks for context processors that have been defined in your application settings. For each context processor that is found, Django calls the associated function and adds the returned dictionary of variables to the template context. This means that once the template has been rendered, all of the variables that have been added by context processors are available to the template. Now let us understand when to use context processors. Context processors are useful when you have information that needs to be available on every page of your website. For example, a user cart on e-commerce site. That is the information that you need to be displayed in every page of your website. Site-wide navigation or site logo, user details such as username or avatar, information that is needed to render the site's foot, and etc. Without context processors, you will need to include the code to fetch this information in every view, making your code base repetitive and hard to maintain. By using context processors instead, you can define the code to fetch this information in one place and make it available to all templates without having to repeat yourself.
Having explained what is context processors and when to use them, now let's have an example on how to use them exactly. So first of all, I've set a small Django project. The process of setting this Django project was I created a virtual environment. Right here installed Django 5.1 and then created Django admin, Django project using Django admin start project. Then inside our project I created our application called codes, and then inside my Django project settings I configured my templates, telling Django where to find my templates. Then I created templates directory which will house all my templates, and then inside my templates I have the base.html. This is a template that I want it to be inherited by other templates. So inside my core I have about.html, I have home.html. So having shown you how I have set up my project, now let's dive into context processor example. So what we are going to use as an example is categories. Let's say you have categories, and these categories you want them to be displayed on your navbar without having to write a function on each view to query those categories so that they can be shown in each template. So the first thing we need to do, let's go to our models and define our categories. So for example, we say class, we say category. Okay, let's say we have a category name. Okay, and then let me add it to my admin. We say models, from dot models, import category, import category, okay? And then let's register that category. So basically what we have done here, we have defined our category and the name of the category. So these are the categories that we want to use context processors to display them in every template on our navbar without having to define a function that fetches those categories in each template. Okay. So the next thing we need to do, let's run migrations, Python manage.py, make migrations, and then have Python manage.py migrate, perfect, and let's clear the console. The next thing we need to do is let us create the super user who can log into our admin interface. So Python manage.py create super user. Then I will give this super user admin, username admin. Then let me use my email at gmail.com, and then let me supply with my password. Okay, it's done. So let's run the server. Python manage.py run server. Now let's go to this to our local host. You can see we have home. Okay, so we want to create a navbar which will have our links. Okay, so let me go back to my base.html and then define our navbar on top of our blog content. Okay, let's say nav, and let's say we have list, an ordered list, and then we have all these. Let me remove this, remove this, let me remove these as well. So we want the categories that we had from our backend to be displayed here. Okay, so that is why I'm removing these. And let's now say category 1, category 1, category 2, category 2. So let this remain to be home. URL home. I had already defined these URLs in my app. Okay, you can see I have home and about. So let me remove these about. Don't need it. So the next thing we need to do now, let us use context processors to display all the categories here. Okay, so the first thing you need to do in your code, in your app, let's create a file called contextprocessor.py. So new file, let's call it context processor.py. Okay. So from these context processors, we need to create those categories. Okay, so first thing we need to do is import the category model. Okay, so say from dot models import category, and remember context processors they return a dictionary of items. Okay, so I'm saying def category, let's define our function which takes a request and then returns what? Returns a dictionary. You can see this is a dictionary with key and a value. A value is all the categories in category table, all objects inside this category model. Okay. Then once we have done this, now what we will do, we will add this category context processor inside our admin. Okay, inside our settings, we have to define these categories context processors inside our settings.py. Okay, we will go to this list of context processors, and here we will define our context processors. Okay, so we created remember from the app which is core, this one. Okay, context processors is file, and then context processors itself, context processor name, okay, which is category. You can as well decide to define another context processor right here. Let's say we want to get the date, the current year for our footer. Remember, we have our footer. I can show you. We have this 2024, but we want to define a function. If we go to 2025, it automatically updates it because it gets the current year from a package called datetime from Django. Okay, so we can define that as well. You can see. Let's first import datetime from. Let's see, from datetime import datetime from datetime import datetime. Now let's define the context processor that gets current year. So a function, say current year, which takes a request and then returns current year, which is datetime dot now dot year. Okay, so we will also add this context processor inside our settings. Just simple as that. So we will come here and say code context processors, and then the processor, the context processor itself name. Okay, so current year. Okay, so have we done this, we can go back to our templates, and then pass in these context processors. So for example, we have let's start with the year. We have our year here and our footer. So instead of doing this, we can just define our context processors itself there. So we can say our context processor name was current year. Okay, let's say current year. Current year. Okay. So if I go back to our browser, remember it's 2024. When I refresh, it is still 2024. So it has picked that current year, which is 2024. Okay, we haven't written any view in our home view right here. You can see we have not written any query that can fetch that information. Okay, we just define it now context processor. Now let's display all the categories on our navbar. Okay, so now navbar, since it is a list, and now we need to define it using a loop. Okay, so we'll say for category in categories. Okay, let's enter loop, and for Now inside here we need to define the name of our category. Okay, so it will be category dot name. Remember categories context processor is getting its values from category model, and category model, it has name. Okay, so anything that will be added inside this model will be displayed in our navbar. So let me remove this and then let's refresh. Remember, we have not added any category yet, so we don't expect that category to be displayed here. So you can see we have only home. Now let's go back to our admin, and add some categories. Okay, and let's add some. Okay. Now let us go back to our admin and add some categories. Okay. So first of all, you have to log in. Remember the credentials you used, you created while creating the super user. So now categories. Let's add one category. Let's see footwear. If you are doing an e-commerce and sale, let's add another one. Let's say clothing. So if we go to our page, home page, you will realize all those categories are being displayed without having us to write any function on our view. So this is how context processors work. We just query the object and then turn those objects into pass those objects inside that template. Okay, so without having to write those. So Django template. So context processors. So these context processors that we have created, that is categories and current year variables, are variables to the context. These variables are then automatically available in all templates without needing to pass them explicitly to views. We have not created any view that uses these variables. Okay, so that is how context processors work. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also like. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you get updates on Django. Bye bye.